I'd like to thank you all and joining us at the RSU 25 School Board meeting for October. Would you all please join with me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Jim, would you be kind enough to take attendance, please?
Yes, Mr. Foster,
I am here.
Mr. Burgess.
Here.
Mr. Frazier.
Here.
Mr. Claire.
Here.
Ms. Asper.
Here.
And Ms. Foster.
I'm present.
There you go. And Ms. Rickman is notified us she is not going to be able to make it tonight, and if she can hook up with us via the link, she will.
Okay. But she's not with us at the moment.
Not at the moment.
So, okay. Great. This is the time for public participation. If you would like to participate, you can email us for public comment at publiccomment@rsu25.org, or you can phone in for public comment at 307-8099. Do we have any public comment that has come in so far?
Not this measure, no.
Okay.
No.
All right.
So you may have public comment in the room.
Do we have any public comment in the room? No. All right. Well, as we wait to see if we can find any other public participation to come in, we will go over adjustments to the agenda.
I've got two adjustments for you. Number one, if we please add Connor Nealand to item M1B. And if we can adjust M5, the second reading of policies, to be discussed after the adjustments to the agenda.
Everyone good with those adjustments? All right, then let's move on to item M5.
M5. Second reading of policy. You have second reading of three policies: BED, remote participation in school board meetings; JJIA, eligibility standards for extracurricular participation; and JCD, regional school unit dress code 25 for dress code. These have been vetted to the policy committee. They came to this board for first reading last month, unanimously moved forward to second reading. Nothing has changed. There's no adjustments to these. They are the same as they were discussed previously.
And we're mostly pushing this up so that if Heather comes in, she can participate.
Then she can participate remotely.
So if you vote yes, you allow her to participate. I would need a motion.
Do we need to be identified like we did last month?
They asked you to.
Yeah, I'll identify. So we have a motion from Scott Frazier,
I make a motion that we accept the readings as listed.
and we have a second from Peter Clare.
Second.
All right. All those in favor of the motion? And that is unanimous without Heather.
All present and voted in favor, so that passes. So now you do allow remote participation at school board meetings. And again, so if she's able to sign in, she can participate, not just watch. Okay.
Perfect. Now we will move back to a regular agenda. We have approval of the minutes. We have a motion from Scott Frazier.
I move that we accept the minutes of September 21st, 2021.
We have a second from Peter.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to accept the minutes. All those in favor? And that is unanimous.
Thank you.
And next we have communications and correspondence.
Yep, in your packet, I shared with you communications. You have an update from Secretary of Education to the federal level. And he went through and talked about a number of different frequently asked questions and information. It was good reading. Miguel Cardona, he was actually the chief executive officer in Connecticut. And so we've had interactions with him throughout New England. It's nice to actually know somebody now at the federal level. Any questions about that communication, certainly contact me. You also had notification that the adult ed program received their allocation for AFLA of $78,260.64. I believe, Kathy, that's a little higher than we anticipated, wasn't it?
A little higher, yes, and it was shared amongst the entire house.
Outstanding. And then you have a communication from Linda Burgess, who because of her new opportunities at work, needs to step down from her obligations at the board. So, with your this notification, I will notify the selectmen of Portland, so they can appoint an individual to fill that remaining portion of her term.
So you need us to make a motion?
No, you just accepted it, it's been read, it's
Oh,
public,
okay,
it's official, so. Okay,
great,
that's all I have.
okay. Next we have superintendent's report.
I submitted my report to you over the weekend. Really, I think it's really critical that we need to start recognizing that, we've been in school now for a little bit over, 7 weeks. We are recognizing that there are some obvious challenges we knew there was going to be from the impact of COVID and actually being out of school in March of 2020. And then last year, doing what we had to do last year, having a chance to be in the schools, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. Okay? We're very fortunate that we have some folks who are working diligently to meet the needs of kiddos, but there's a significant lapse for some of these kiddos. And it's socially and developmentally really, for me, the most telling. Obviously, there's some academic loss, but it's that social development is really, really critical. So we will be attending to that. That's part of the ESSER 3 grant that I submitted. I did get feedback on that. We have 4 sections that we have to clear up and adjust to their liking for approval, but that's in the works. We'll be talking at the Facilities Committee report about the exterior of the Bucksport Middle School, as well as information about the athletic field at Bucksport Middle School. And the other 2 key items of my report are both agenda items, so I will leave that to the agenda. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Jim? Jim, on the plan for the students who are falling behind because of the COVID measures that we took last year, how are we identifying where kids are at? I'm having a hard time trying to
Yep, multiple.
phrase it, but
Yep.
I know it isn't standard that, like, everybody's behind of this.
No.
It's like every kid is different. We don't know so how are you managing that?
Well, we have information of their performance last year. So we know the kiddos who completed most of our school curriculum and those who did not. So we know that part. Then we've done our NWA assessments. We'll have that information coming to us. We know where they'll be from that.
Okay.
And so kiddos have been identified for additional supports. We've got the program, the transition for the kiddos who didn't quite finish up 8th grade. There's that transition program that was started. Mr. West, Mr. Tripp have got that up and running. So those kiddos have already been identified and they're in that program moving forward. So
Are there temporary tweaks to curriculum that are going to be done once we know what these cohorts are?
Evelyn and the principals will be able to speak to that specifically.
Okay, I can ask them that.
Yeah, but especially like working with kiddos, like when you have support, Title I support and those types of things, when we know kiddos are behind, we get them prepared for what they're going to be exposed to for new learning. So we get them started and moving forward a little quicker, give them a leg up, help them out with that. Of course, you have your additional period 9 programs, both at the middle school and high school, to help kids and identify them to fit and meet graduation requirements. So it's really being customized, and as kiddos need them, we go after that area.
Yeah, we've kind of always talked about this customizable learning. It sounds like we really got to do it this time around.
And it's not gonna happen overnight. It's not a
Yeah.
one-year fix.
No, I mean, you have to get, some people much more advanced than they currently are to be able to get to where you need to be. So
That's correct.
I understand that.
Like our summer school program started this summer. We had 90 kiddos attending summer school program designed specifically to help them start to fill in some of the things that they missed previously. So
And that was successful.
that was very successful, yes. Yeah.
Any other questions for Jim? Okay. The board chair's report, I just want to, once again, bring up the fact that we have 3 fantastic high school teams going on right at the moment. Got, a girls soccer team that is, what are they, number 1?
They're number 1, they're undefeated, they beat Orono 5-0
Yeah,
today, so.
and Ella
Ella Husford has
is,
scored, she broke the school record for the 4-year school record, and she's only a junior. And she's had so far 50 goals this year.
so that's just slightly amazing.
And that's just the girls' side. The boys,
The
Equally
boys
as-
are doing, I think, the best that they've ever done. They're currently 4th place. They just finished up their regular season with a very exciting tie against Orono, who is the only team that has actually beaten us.
and in first place.
And they are in 1st place. And then the high school football team, Peter, you want to tell us about Friday's game?
They did very well Friday night. They dominated.
Very well, very, very well. And so the kids who are out, they're doing very well. And it really is a good boost to the community. We have so many community members coming out to our games, giving us something to do. It's very nice.
I wish I could speak to cross-country and volleyball. I believe Will Heileman came in first in the PVC cross-country meet. And Rebecca Ireland came in 5th overall for the girls.
And the boys team finished 3rd, Josh?
Good.
3rd as a team.
But I can't speak for the volleyball.
The volleyball team is their position for the,
Yeah, they have a game going on right now, and they've had a successful season. I mean, their record is not probably what they would want it to be, but they've been very competitive in many games.
one of the things, Tom, if I can kind of jump in here.
Sure.
is, and Sue Bennett has been the driving force here is the pool testing that we're doing. Right now, Sue, I believe it's over 400 people who have signed up to participate.
Yeah, about 415 people roughly.
Really important that that pool testing provides kids opportunities. So if they're participating in the pool and if they're in close contact, as long as they're not symptomatic or have an active case, they are allowed to continue to stay in school and continue to participate in their programming. And it's very, very good opportunity. It's minimally invasive. There's the only thing that kiddos use with that is it's absolutely a sanitized Q-tip and very sterile, and it's a nice opportunity to take advantage of, because I know we've had some kiddos, because they're not vaccinated or not in the pool testing, and if they're in close contact, they have to sit out and they're not allowed to participate in their activities. So I just I hope people are recognizing that that's an opportunity where kids can still participate and not have to quarantine. That's a benefit. The biggest benefit is they get to stay in school.
That's true.
So, but I would like to encourage more people to participate, and the program's worked. We've tested, or Sue said, we've done it 3 times now for over 400 people each time, and we've identified 3 positive cases. And that's accomplishing what the program wants to accomplish, because it's an early identification, so we can make sure those folks can get the help that they need, take care of themselves, and not expose other people. All 3 were asymptomatic, so they didn't even show any symptoms. So it's a safety, and it's a reason why we're able to stay in school and keep school open. Now, if I keep the boilers running, that's a whole other conversation. But as far as that goes, so yes, but the teams have done well. We've had a few kids obviously got impacted by having to quarantine, but for the most part, they're doing well.
It's not like last year where they just shut down the season.
No.
So, no, it's working much better. I also wanted to just mention a little bit about Linda retiring. Linda's been a very active member of our board and been very helpful and a real instrument on the curriculum committee. Linda's been a very cheerful voice in support of our school and our communities, and she will definitely be missed. And I hope that Orland is able to find somebody as good as Linda was to replace her. And finally, the Twix I've given you guys as a Halloween treat for Halloween, and also because I'm just kind of wanting to watch you guys try to figure out how to get those into your face through your mask. So that's the board chair's report. Any questions for me? No? Good. We can go on to the committee reports. Curriculum committee is headed by Ed.
Yeah, so thank you. I'm a new appointment. I hope to be as cheerful as Linda. And I did run my first committee meeting this past Thursday, October 14th. I think it went pretty well overall. I'll just kind of give you a review of what happened. So we had a lot of community members actually not show, but we had one community member who's not a typical community member, and it's Mr. Keith Nealon. So he was able to join us, which is great. And he is looking to be a part of the committee either as a community member, or I know he's in a school board election too, and if he wins, then as part of the school board. So first, what we did was we talked with Cheryl, and she gave us a overview of the illustrative math learning zillion update. She showed us all the work around the planning, and we got tons of handouts, and there is a lot of work around that. She showed us some live documents and talked to us about when and how they're going to be updated and how they're going to remain live documents. Todd gave us a couple of updates. The first one for the STARS grant update. He showed us that at the end of September, he's increased attendance in the STARS students from 76 to 85% attendance, and all except one student attended more classes than they did last year. So that was a really great improvement. He shared with us a slideshow, which was great. And we do still need to apply for the second year, and Todd's going to figure out what's needed next, and then get back to us there. Then he updated us with the history in the Mason grant, and he talked about the 6th grade ELA Arts Integrated Project, the kids making self-portraits with masks, and a series of speakers came in. I was actually one of the speakers, so that was a lot of fun. I got to be a panelist, and the kids asked me all kinds of questions about the pandemic. And then they have a 7-day residency. Artists will come and help create a mural with the students. So that's going to be really cool too. Then Jen went to give us an Aspire update, and we looked around and realized we're all the same people that are on the Aspire committee. So we didn't really talk about a whole lot there. But we do have a new Aspire partner, RSU 54 Skowhegan. So we're looking forward to partnering with them. There's 2 new high school students, and 1 Bucksport Middle School member will be on the Aspire committee, which is nice. And then Jim gave us some district updates, which was mostly centered around the Buck Library becoming a recognized educational partner potentially, and the PEPG system, which is education. It's an evaluation system of educators that, and he gave us an update on that. And then we also talked about the policy committee working on the remote learning policy, which we just reviewed at the beginning of this meeting. So I think that pretty much summarized it. I took some notes. I hope that wasn't too much, but no, does it sound good? Does anyone have any questions? Did I get a pretty good summary? All right.
Any questions for Ed? All right.
Thank you.
Finance committee met right before this meeting. We discussed the regular budget. We're at about the 77% remaining point. Almost all cost centers actually got more money than that. The two that don't were facilities and transportation. And both of those we suspect are going to even out. We're kind of front loaded those.
Yes.
And so that's where finance is. Any questions for finance? Okay, we have policy.
Policy committee, we did meet, bringing forth 4 policies from our meeting. All 4 of these policies, I believe Mr. Luffy spoke to those in his report, but all of them are a direct reason we talked about these is because of new legislation and laws that were passed in the last legislature. So most of these were pretty boilerplate, were written by our lawyers, and we talked about the ramifications of them and moved those forward. Did have some conversation around the remote learning, as Abby mentioned. I think, and Mr. Booth, please correct me if I'm not characterizing this correctly, but the members that are in attendance, thoughts were remote learning as we're doing it today. For our kids with 504 special needs, kids that are directly affected by COVID, is kind of where we, as our committee, saw that as being where we needed to end remote learning, and did agree that we need to continue to work on policies surrounding it as far as attendance and setting it forth in the guidelines for students to stay in a remote attendance, remote participation. So I characterize that.
I think you characterized it, and basically the committee directed me to come back to the next meeting with draft guidance as to expectations. Make sure that we're all on consistent expectations of what it means for remote learning. And this does support the plan as you folks approved it. It supports the opportunity for kids to have access. We do have kids taking advantage of remote learning. But what we don't have is we don't have the a la carte. I'll just sign in remotely here and, and then another day I might come in remotely, and that's just unmanageable. And we need to, as I mentioned earlier, we have a lot of work to do with kids, getting them caught up on pace, and we can't do remediation effectively with a lot of remote work going on. So, it's critical that we have kids in person, but there are opportunities. Today we had to use remote because of the all was out of the high school, so it's there. If we need to do it, we can do it. But there's some challenges. I'll bring back some draft guidelines. The committee can have conversation with them next month and then direct me where to go from there.
Any questions for policy?
One thing is the principals did speak to this, and they were all participating in that. And it looks slightly different depending on grade level because of developmental readiness and ability to access the remote. And so it is adapted for the level of kids.
Please. We have facilities.
We met last week and we had continued discussions about the middle school exterior. Wayne was continuing to dig into and finding out exactly what's wrong, what should have been there, and all that, and talked about that and what it possibly could cost down the road. And he was continuing to explore and what our options were. And then we talked some more about the middle school athletic fields and a revised plan on upgrading those, which is a lot more doable, a better price. And then we reviewed the capital improvement plan and looked at possible projects for next budget year.
As part of your packet, you do have a diagram of the proposed under drain. And the original plans, and Wayne discovered this as he's going through the plans, called for drainage to be put in those fields when they originally built, but they were not included in the as-built. What the company, Oliver Associates engineering firm, discovered that they did borings, and there was anywhere from less than an inch of topsoil to 4 inches, depending on where you were at the field. They did analysis of the soil, very poor soil quality. The fines have really dominated, the fine granular parts of soil have really dominated and prevented drainage to happen naturally, so we're actually holding more water than we should be. But they did present us a plan that is achievable, much less expensive.
Yeah.
Overall investment of around $230,000 with a year one investment of $146,000, and that's would be installing the drainage as diagrammed here. It would be cleaning up the drainage ditches that are in existence that didn't get built as spec originally. Replacing the infield mix for both baseball and softball to something that, may not cause a lot of scarring and bloody knees. It's mostly gravel up there right now. Then overdressing with good soil and grading with the areas that have settled to bring those up to level. They're estimating the first year cost to be right around $146,000, call it $150,000. And then with a plan of the next 4 years, coming back and top dressing and fertilization, balancing the soil chemistry out until you augment that so you have a nice, reasonable depth of topsoil over time. So if everything goes to plan, we would go to the go out to bid for contractors to do the work this late winter, early spring, with the idea to bring to the public request for authorization to expend money from the capital reserve account to do this work and to get the work done over this coming summer. It would mean 1 more year of not using those fields, let those settle in, mature, get ready to go, but the following spring being on those. That's where we are with that, and we'll certainly keep you up to speed on how this advances. And as far as the middle school exterior siding, we've learned that product that's on there is warranted for 15 years. That building is now about 19 years old. It's failed. It's basically press board with a vinyl covering, and you can start to see as you inspect the building, you can start to see the vinyl start to bubbling out, and that's because of the press board is starting to get moisture in behind it and it's expanding. So Wayne is working with contractors. He has multiple contractors up there with thoughts and ideas to give us a solution. Basically, what we're going to end up doing is going back to the facilities committee and then come to the school board and just show you the options of how to repair. And then it's going to be a matter of making a choice of how do you want to proceed. Do you do something that's going to last 10 years, or you do something that's going to last 25, 30 years, what have you? Okay. Obviously, the longer life you put up there, the more cost. As Peter said, we're looking at about 16,000 square feet overall between the vertical and horizontal siding. So that's significant. And when you look at the least expensive option that's been considered to date is somewhere just short of $16 a square foot. And as you move up in quality of the exterior items, you're going to be getting closer to $40 a square foot. So it's significant, but the reality is that building is a tremendous asset. And we either take care of the assets that we have and invest in them, or they're going to deteriorate very quickly and we're going to lose the life of them. So there's no reason for these buildings to not be 100-year-plus buildings if we maintain them as they are. Again, we would look to do that project through the capital reserve account. I'm anticipating that after we get done audit of the past fiscal year, we will have amounts for the board to consider to seed into the reserve accounts. And so as that information becomes available, I'll work through the finance committee, the facilities committee, and come up with a proposal for the board to consider and act upon. Any other questions? Going to be a very active winter for facilities.
Then we can move to HCTC.
We did meet last week via Zoom, and Amy updated us with several different areas. One of them I was surprised at. There are 5 area high schools that attend HCTC, and as of last week, Bucksport and MDI were the only 2 doing pool testing. And Ellsworth was supposed to start this week. So still are to, and to give you an example of keeping students in, the Bucksport girls soccer team missed a game with Sumner because the entire girls team was quarantined. Sumner was. So if they had had pool testing, if these girls had been doing pool testing, and were asymptomatic, that wouldn't have happened. And I can't remember if they are optional on masks.
Yeah, HCTC.
No, at Sumner,
Summer, that's option.
yeah, and that also adds into the matrix that we received.
Sure.
She gave us updates on live work hours and what the different courses are doing to meet those needs. The culinary is doing bakery. They're doing bakery, so they can bakery to go, and they said that was new. Law enforcement, there's a change. They've lost their instructor. So if anybody knows do they have one now?
We may have one. They were talking to an individual today.
Okay, well, okay, breaking news.
Yeah.
Okay, I won't go any further on that one. Cybersecurity is the new program. The classroom is still being worked on, so they're using the cafeteria. That's why culinary is slowed down. They have an ed tech to work with them in person, and there's a professor from the University of Augusta that's meeting with them via Zoom or whatever, but the students are going at their own pace and they love it. So right now it's working. We hope to get an instructor sometime, at least for next year. Those are the major points. There's an awful lot of other little things I don't need to expand upon, but if there's any questions, I will take them.
Any questions for Scott? Okay. Then we can do administrator and principal reports. Evelyn, you want to go first? Everybody's here, right?
Yeah, still in the public. The end is not.
Well, the bulk of my report you heard, Abigail did a great job with the curriculum report and is doing a great job as chair. So she's going to keep us right on task and asking great questions. So that just a couple of things I wanted to point out. In my report, the October 8th, all of the online math training that all the teachers participated in went really well. They did a great job. And that's another one of the positive sides of the last 2 years and all the technology we've had, is everybody was able to participate in that training right in their classrooms, see all the resources, get trained on the online resources we had available. So that went really well. And another piece, I don't know if you noticed, the last page, I always try to give you a complete overview to upcoming dates and things that are coming for two purposes. One, so you can see we do have a year-long plan for ELA, math training, and many other things that come up. And number two, so as we start getting busier and busier and more events, that we have these dates on the calendar so we don't double book. So I just put that in there for you to keep you updated. And didn't know if you had any questions after hearing Abigail's great report out on the curriculum report and reviewing my report.
Any questions?
No, thank you.
Evelyn. Next we have Josh.
Hello, everybody. So you have a copy of my report. I think the biggest thing I want to touch on, I put a few pictures there of homecoming. And I know traditionally, like homecoming, you would think it's a huge deal, not something I would probably try to highlight in my report as like the biggest thing of the month, especially when I have like standardized testing and all these other really important academic things. But I think from a school culture and just for students trying to feel some sort of sense of normalcy and kind of getting back to what they truly love about, some of those highlights, especially for our seniors that when you think about, they've lost their proms, they've lost homecoming, just things that have not been normal. I mean, it was great to see students dressed up in foolish outfits all week long. To see them here, when we had about 50 kids here decorating to almost 10 o'clock at night from like 7 to 10. Mrs. Grindle stayed here with them. And the hallways just came out fantastic. So it was a really great week that concluded with activities. And again, it was a little less than traditional, but we still had grades competing against each other. We had pie throwing contests, we had pie eating contests, and Yes, we had to stream some of them to classrooms because we could only have about half the students in there at a time, but it was really just a great week, just a really great sense of having school pride back in there. And I think the kids did, I mean, they just really took a great proactive approach, like how can we do this safely and well and enjoy it, and not really focus on, we can't have a homecoming dance. They're like, you know what, whatever. Like, we wish we could have a homecoming dance, but we can't, so let's find out what we can do and how can we really enjoy this week. So it was just, great credit to our student council, to Mrs. Grindle, to help set that up, and then just for all the students who were participating. So, so again, to me, that was kind of the big highlight of the month. Yes, we are testing and giving lots of surveys all month long. We gave the PSATs, again, successfully last week. We were doing our NWA testing. We've already done that for sophomores and freshmen. We'll be doing our juniors next week. And like I said, we'll be doing the survey. And now we're kind of gearing up, and it's hard to believe that we're gearing up for winter sports seasons already. I mean, Tom kind of illustrated the successful fall sports, and I don't want to jump over that because we got playoff games coming up over the next, couple of weeks. And, but, winter sports do have a bit of a different tone to them, mostly because they're indoors and not outside. So obviously outside, it's been easier to manage to come up with protocols, both for spectators and for our athletes. Now we're moving them off inside, obviously with the colder weather. So I would say the biggest challenge we have right now is trying to get everybody in the state on the same page. One thing that we have experienced with volleyball is that, like, there's been some schools that are have made their athletes mask. When our athletes are competing, they don't have to mask here. So we've kind of adopted like house rules when we go to a school that we would wear our masks, and when they come here, it's optional for them if they choose to wear them. It hasn't been a big issue, but not everybody has volleyball teams. We've been talking about a small group of schools that have actually had to kind of figure this out. As we move into basketball season, indoor track, wrestling, for schools that have like swimming, as you can imagine, like wearing a mask while swimming in the pool could be rather difficult. So we have more things that we have to figure out. We'll get there and we'll do it, but it's just a matter of giving everybody on the same page so that it's somewhat consistent throughout the teams that we play. Again, Mr. Ward's been doing a fantastic job. This meeting's going on. We're waiting for some direction from our conference, from the MPA, and obviously ultimately the Superintendent's Association, CDC, and Department of Health and Human Services. I probably won't see you, I'm guessing, between when we get those parameters and our next board meeting. So I know what kind of our plan has been to follow the guidance set forth by the MPA and any league organizations that we're involved with. We will just keep you apprised through email communication as to what those look like. And I also put in there, the good problem that we have is that indoor track is probably going to have really large numbers, which again is a good thing. I think they're nuts for wanting to run indoor track, which is really outdoor track for us because they just run outside for every practice except for the meets. And it's really cold running sprints when it's 10 degrees outside, but they do it. But really it does become a supervision issue when you have 50 athletes to be able to give them the coaching that they need. It probably will necessitate us having to hire another coach to stay consistent with what we do with our outdoor track events. So, do you have any questions?
I just assume on indoor track, we still don't know how,
Yeah.
like last year, they had sweating event held at this school and another event, but we don't know, do we?
Yeah, so one of the challenges with indoor tracks that we utilize universities, like colleges, we use their facilities. So like the University of Maine, and the University of Maine has some pretty strict guidelines for their own athletes in regards to vaccinations and spectators. So we're trying to navigate what that looks like. I mean, their athletes have to be vaccinated to participate at the college level. Our athletes do not. So we're their guest. We do pay to rent the facilities as a league, but we still have to follow their rules, and we're trying to figure out what that looks like. That's one of those things that I don't have a great answer for you right now. What I will say is there's actually been a petition from one of the conferences, the MPA, to allow us to have events on Sundays because we can't get the facilities during the week because they have to spread them out so much to reduce the number of people that can compete in there. Whether that happens or not, doesn't happen to be our league, but it could cascade over based on how things work out, so. That, you would think that track would be one of the easier ones, but it's actually one of the more difficult ones for us, because we do rely on other people's facilities.
More of a comment. I was at the football game the other night, my first one, of course, last year. Wasn't anything there, but, and I was thinking to myself that all the number of students are involved in our fall athletics. And, I look at Mr. Tripp's STARS program, bringing in that group of kids to make them feel more ownership of the school. And, you've got the football game, you've got the cheerleaders going on, you've got the band playing, and knowing that, there's this group of cross-country kids that are out there running on the next day or whatever. Soccer teams are playing volleyball. You think about the percentage, it must be in excess of 60% of our student body.
Yeah, we're pushing
Even in the high
70%.
school.
I mean, just prior to COVID, we were pushing 70%. I don't think we have dropped that much. We've seen a small reduction in some areas, but we've actually seen growth out there. So I bet we are in the 65 to 70% participation core extracurricular.
And we've just seen, that the studies when Peter Stewart was on the board, when we looked at athletic and looked at academic performance as it relates to the kids that are involved in the school. And it's so nice to have that back. And I'm reading Mr. Boothby's report about being up here with homecoming week and what's going on, and the kids doing that socialization that we've realized that they missed so much last year. So thank you, I guess, to Mr. Tripp and to our administrators, athletic directors, and teachers, and it's nice to see us back to some sense of normalcy and at a quite safe level.
Yep.
Here, so thank you.
Absolutely. Any other questions for Josh? Thank you, Josh. Thank you. Next, we got Todd.
Good evening, everyone. Similar to Josh, I wanted to focus on kind of the school culture piece to lead off my report. It's not in the written report, but tomorrow we're planning to have our first full school Bucks Pride Assembly since before the pandemic. So we haven't been able to get together as a whole group. This has been a long time ongoing tradition going back, I think, since the school was started pretty much. Since Bucksport Middle School came into existence, there's been Bucks Pride assemblies, and we haven't been able to do them as a whole school since the pandemic because we can't get 300 people together. So we decided it was really important that our entire student body and staff get together, and so we're going to do one outside tomorrow. I'm glad, looking at the forecast, that the northwest wind is going to lay down a little bit between now and then. Today would not have been the best day to do it. But just like what David was just talking about, so much of early adolescence is about defining yourself, and so much of early adolescent education is about convincing them that that self is connected to something bigger than them. And so, sometimes just seeing the fact that I'm one of 300 kids and we're part of this broader community is really important, and is part of making those connections. So we're glad that that's something that we're going to be able to do. We've reinstituted our T-shirt policy for everyone, so we have new spiffy black "The Bucks Are Back" T-shirts. So we wanted to give out on the first day, but we couldn't figure out how to do it since we were back to our distancing. And so I guess we have "The Bucks Have Been Back for 6 weeks" T-shirts or something like that. Again, with middle school kids, they all want to be part of something, and we understand that not every kid can, if they don't play sports, or if their parents can't afford it, they don't necessarily have Bucksport gear. And so we like to make sure that everyone can kind of put the uniform on and be part of the bigger team, the bigger community. We're excited to provide that to them. If you've been by the middle school, you've noticed that the outdoor classroom is almost done. I think they have about 25 lineal feet of white fascia board left. I think that's all they have left to do, and then it will be finished. And then it really turns over to the students. They've had some say in the design so far, but from here on out, all the details, all the seating, all the tables, any of the storage or signage, that's really going to be student directed and student driven. And Abby mentioned that, you know, there is this second year of the grant coming up. This year, because the program didn't exist, the adults kind of decided what the focal point and what the project is going to be. We have a group of students with us now, so they're going to have a lot of say in sort of identifying what's the next thing, what do we want to tackle that would really be an asset to the district, to the campus, to Bucksport Middle School, that we can take some ownership and sort of bringing to life and making happen. So we're very excited about that. Tom earlier mentioned that idea of how do we figure out which kids are how far behind, and that's really what our intervention program is designed to. Once we've done things like the fall NWEA testing, informal diagnostic assessments in our classrooms, just our own knowledge of, you know, last year we covered this much. Some students missed this part, so we know that we got to offer something. What we've had in the past for an intervention block is basically a grade level intervention block, which means we've had 80 kids and 4 teachers at any given time, and we've been as flexible as we could be within that. But if the ELA teacher wants to focus on these 10 kids and the math teacher wants to focus on these 10 kids, then that means that the poor science and social studies teacher had 60 kids that they have to figure out something to do with. And so that created some issues. Darcy, she was a teacher in that system. She could probably tell you what it was like. You had like the 8 kids you really needed to work with, and then the 12 kids that were there just because they had to be somewhere. Didn't always result in the greatest intervention for everyone. Now we have a school-wide intervention block. So immediately after lunch and recess, every staff member, every student, we're all engaged in intervention. That gives us a lot more flexibility. So if there's 3 kids in 5th grade, 3 kids in 6th grade, and 2 kids in 7th grade that all need to work on the same multiplication concept, we can take one math teacher, put them together. We don't have to create 3 different really small groups. We can just have one small group. We have all of our unified arts teachers participating. So, our music teacher, our health teacher, information technology, they're offering they're alternating between enrichment activities. So there are some kids that don't need any intervention, and it's great to give them an enrichment opportunity to really push and expand their learning. And then they're also tying it into content areas. So like Mr. Reed for science, his intervention is specifically around mathematical formulas and equations that you need for science. So the student who might need some math intervention maybe isn't gung-ho about strictly doing math, but they really like science. We can use that as an entryway to help get the students that extra math practice and be excited about it instead of having to do like extra math worksheets or something like that. So we're excited about the flexibility that it brings us, and we also think it's really going to help us target our intervention so that the kids who need an intervention are matched up with a teacher who's able to deliver that, and there's not a lot of other kids there just because they have to be somewhere. We've got something engaging and exciting for them as well. And then finally, I just wanted to mention amongst the things that it's great to have back in a semi-normal year is our music program. For whatever reason, music apparently had to be like hit hardest last year for COVID. As hard as athletics and sports were, I think music programs were hit even harder. At the high school level, kids who already knew how to play instruments could figure out how to continue that. A 5th grader who's never done band before, it's really tough to teach them how to play a saxophone if you can't get within 6 feet of them. Or at one point, 14 feet. So you couldn't even see where their fingers were on the thing, let alone help them out. So we spent the first start of school getting our band program up and running. I think we have almost 100 students involved in band, which is great to see. We've got a band at each level, 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, plus jazz band. And now we're shifting our focus to choral music. So we're gonna also offer vocal music for students that hopefully the signups will be going out by the end of the week. And then we can start developing rosters and classes for that. One of the things that we're always trying to balance while we want to offer those opportunities is how do we make sure that a kid does actually go to a math class and science class, and they're not always, as great as music and JMG and stars and all this other stuff is, it's really wonderful to offer it. We still want our kids to experience that core curriculum and have access to that too. So we're trying to figure out how to balance all the different, Josh always says it's a great problem to have. So it's great to have a lot of things to offer kids. We just want to make sure they get as many of them, especially the core stuff, as we possibly can. So that's my report. If anyone has any questions.
Abby?
I don't have any questions. I just wanted to thank you for getting that focus back in on the arts, because I agree the core curriculum is very, very important. That extra stuff is really what makes kids this age thrive. And, my son really wants to join the chorus, and there's only so much karaoke Tom can endure.
That's very true.
We've been practicing, his wife, myself, our children, and, I think he'll be happy to see it, somewhat professional, not in our living room.
Yes. Everyone will appreciate that.
And Todd, I wanted to say that I'm very impressed with the idea of having that period 9 be building wide instead of grade wide. Having that extra flexibility really is key in what we have right now, where so many kids are just all over the place because of what has happened. I think that's going to give you a lot more resources to be able to direct the target where kids really need to be. So thank you for doing that.
We're excited about that. We had it all set to roll out last year, and then we needed that time so the teachers could wheel their carts from classroom to classroom. So all the more reason that we're excited about it.
Any other questions for John? Thank you very much, Todd.
Thank you.
Next, we have Christine.
Good evening. You have a copy of my report. A couple of things that didn't make it into my report that I want to make sure I highlight are some of the positives that we've kind of reintroduced. So Mrs. Dakin and I have reintroduced our positive office referrals that we kicked off probably last spring, I think it was, Darcy, maybe, roughly, where the traditional office referral, as we all know it, would not be a positive office referral. But we introduced positive office referrals, and kids love when they see that they've gotten written up with a positive office referral on a bright, shiny piece of paper, because it's for acts of kindness, positive attitude, being respectful, responsible, safe, just anything that a teacher or a staff member might catch them doing. And they beam when they see us coming with those. At the younger level, at pre-K and kindergarten, stickers are just what kids love. And so you come with that positive office referral and some stickers, and they are happy as can be. So I had the pleasure of going into a pre-K classroom today and awarding a couple of friends positive office referrals that their teacher, Mr. Preventure, had written for them about acts of kindness. So that's always great to do, and also happening at the Miles Lane School. So those are highlights of our day, Darcy and I both, when we're in our buildings. And something else that we've done is reintroduced at Miles Lane School, finally, after COVID kind of messed it up last year, is students purchasing in the golden tickets. We have a golden ticket store at Miles Lane, and they can purchase experiences, and we had to kind of cut a lot of those off last year because they couldn't purchase those. And Mrs. Rockcliffe and I have been working to reintroduce those to the golden ticket store. Things such as, getting a chance to have lunch with Miss Ellis or Miss Dakin, or getting a chance to play a game with Mrs. Rockcliffe or Mrs. Daly in the office. And then Officer Chris, our school resource officer, has agreed to also be part of our golden ticket store and offer up lunch with Officer Chris. And so kids can purchase those experiences with golden tickets. So we're happy to reintroduce the experiences that they can purchase. And also we're doing a little twist on that for our staff members too. So to keep our staff members happy as well. So going to the things that are in my report, I had a big focus on intervention, which is something that Tom mentioned earlier. And so we've really taken a targeted approach to interventions this year across the K through 4 span specifically. And we've restructured our intervention to make it so that our ed techs and our intervention teachers that we now have are content specific. So we have folks specializing in math and folks specializing in reading and writing. Before it was they specialized in a specific wing, but they were covering both subject areas. And so this has really helped them to really specialize their training that they're doing and also specialize the services that they're providing. So I gave you a pretty lengthy write-up of the math outline of how that all came to be, probably more information than you cared to have, but I really wanted to make sure you kind of understood all of the work that went into that this fall, and also a similar approach to reading. So currently at the Miles Lane School, 67 students are receiving structured, solid reading interventions every single day, and 73 students are receiving math interventions. And then at the kindergarten building, it looks a little different because they're 5 and things, we're just learning how to be a student, but we're getting there. And Beth Gray is our interventionist at the Jewett School. And so she is just getting started with some small groups, a lot of push in classrooms for her right now, but that will slowly switch to some small group instruction as well in both math and reading. We are using Do the Math as our intervention program at the Miles Lane School and at the Jewett School. It is a research-based intervention. And Cheryl Tovey and Linda White have been working on that with our intervention books. And then we use a mixture for reading. We use leveled literacy intervention or fluency intervention or reading recovery. We have a lot of tools that we can pick from for reading that are all research-based. So we're excited about seeing the results of really being able to target and focus because as Mr. Boothby and as Tom, you were mentioning, we do have a lot of students who need us to be able to help them out in that area. And we are also refocusing on our positive behavioral supports at both schools because we do have a lot of students who haven't been in school for a while. It's really eye-opening to think about 3rd graders, specifically 3rd graders, and their last normal year of school was kindergarten. So 1st grade year got cut short and 2nd grade year was different. And now they're in their 3rd grade year. So the last year that they would consider we consider their normal year, but for them, this has probably become normal, would be their kindergarten year. So it really does put that into perspective for us when we're thinking about why we need to rewind and go back to some of those basic expectations. They need us to do that. So, it's been a while. Anyway, we've done a lot of NUIA testing this month, and we've also had quite a bit of PD happening, October 8th. And then we also had some Lucy Calkins training for our new staff that Evelyn was able to schedule for us. And also the exciting part, I know homecoming is big at the high school and there's lots of things going on at the middle school, but field trips are just a highlight in the elementary program. That's just what kids want to do. Field trips are hands-on learning experiences. And thanks to the whole busing situation getting worked out, and we have our own buses. Not that we weren't able to do that before, but we really can do it now. And following COVID guidelines, we've been able to have our kids experience lots of fall field trips. So I kind of highlighted a few of those for you in there and made sure I gave you some pictures as well. I'm happy to answer any questions you have about elementary.
Any questions for Christine? Thank you, Christine.
Thank you.
Next we have Kathy.
Good evening, everyone. You have my report, but I think one of the small things that didn't make it in there is we've been doing some heavy collaboration with partners on our grants. And one of the things that we've been working on is the reduction of duplication of efforts. And as part of our pilot work, we realized that we're spending a lot of time contacting our students. They have their personal email, and you can't just email a class. You have to send an individual email to every single person in the class so that you don't share their personal emails, because maybe student A doesn't want student B contacting them at home and they don't want to have to change their personal email. So one of the things we've been working with is with the tech department to give our adult students RSU-25 email accounts. And he's put in, it's called Gaggle, and I don't understand it all, but he's done all the research. So it monitors those accounts so that there's no bullying, no bad stuff going on, because even though we are adults, sometimes we're just as naughty as the little ones. So kind of keeps everybody honest. but it has given us a ton of time for our teachers, because when they have a class like our medical assistant class and they need to send something out, they can just email the class. And that way, if a student wants to reach out and get help from maybe another student in the class or contact the teacher, everything is going through an official school account. It's monitored, and it's not something that you have to feel like your private information is out there for just somebody you've never met. So that's been really, really interesting, and the other adult ed sites are looking at how that's going to work for us. So so far it's been really great, and we're looking to see how that goes. The other item that's not in here, we do have a state adult education meeting on Friday, and I made the mistake of asking, did we do a presentation for that? Because everybody was supposed to. But guess who's doing the presentation? So I won't make that mistake again. But the good news is we've done a lot of work in the community. We've been working with the Healthy Communities Coalition on a tech literacy grant for seniors. We've also participated in All Learning Counts Maine to get some computer support specialized training out there. We've also been part of the Tech Hire group, and we have the Adult Education Workforce Innovation Technology grant that our hub has all been working on that. So we'll be presenting on the work we've done to promote technology here especially, but also throughout the hub. And we're pretty proud of the work that we've all been able to do to help people connect and reduce isolation in the community and barriers to students adult students being able to try to find a way around work and families to get to class. Any questions?
Any other questions, Ken? Thank you, Kathy. Next, we have Jen Terry.
Good evening. Just a couple things to share with you we've been up to in this past month. So Jordan actually had the opportunity to do a presentation at the JMG News Specialist this past spring. She was new this spring, and now she was talking to some news specialists this fall about some of the outreach that we've started with community engagement with employers. So that was nice, and it also made a connection to be able to share the work we've done with the timeline. So we're still continuing to build and expand our network of resources by working with other JMG sites, and now looking forward to working with the new Aspire site that has been named. She was also able to bring in a special guest, Cindy Wood from the Eldredge American. That was a request made by a middle school teacher to have journalism as a career pathway. So that was able to happen this month. And also was able to introduce the new middle school guidance counselor in this month's character element video. We also had a table last week ago, Friday, at the Professional Development Day for just a casual sort of conversations with teachers at Jewett and Miles Lane about resources they might be looking for, opportunities for collaboration. So that really gave us a feel for how things are going in their schools and some things that we might be able to support. And we're in ongoing consideration of this year's budget and how to best distribute the funds with equity throughout the district in the opportunities. So that's an ongoing process. I mentioned to you last month that we did the senior night. So we've had both senior nights now. It was a great collaboration between guidance and all the different groups, graduation coordinator, senior class, advisor, yearbook, and the magnet that I've talked about has finally arrived. It will be in the hands of the seniors this week, so they can put that on their fridge and keep track of all the important and exciting countdown till their graduation, which, if you want to mark your calendar, is June 10th of 2022. And new newsletter will come out hopefully tomorrow. And we decided to do an ad for the yearbook, so I've just submitted that this year. And our steering committee met in late September and was very helpful with some input on places they think we might be able to have Aspire be present in the community to engage with community members as we did at Orland River Day. So we have a good list of some ideas. And the committee also helped with doing a review of our new Google site to kind of help steer where we think we want to, what we want that to look like and how we want to share resources. And as Abby said, we now have full committee with representation from each school and now 2 high school representatives. Moving along. Anyone have questions?
Any questions for Jim? Thank you. And last, we have Jim Morrow.
I had to walk my own, that worked out pretty well. Hello, everyone. No report this month, pretty much support services, much like I reported last month. 2 big topics I'll bring up. The first is that we did receive our high school Chromebooks today. So my team will be working over the next 3 to 4 weeks distributing those. Basically, it's a handoff, bring them in, put them back out. As much as the devices we have in hand now have gotten us through, the newer ones are really premium devices. Spend a lot of time on them. And Chromebooks generally have a 5 to 6 year life cycle according to Google. So something we're getting now, we'd expect that Google actually expires the device. They say that's long enough, you need to upgrade. So we'd expect those to expire in 2026. These ones have enough hardware in them that Google guarantees them through 2028. So we could, assuming with good use, which we will certainly preach to our students, get 7 years use out of these devices and Google will support them. That's very good news for us. So those came in, those are being distributed, and I forget what the other topic was immediately that I had, but basically we're in a support role right now. One thing that is catching up with us is when we went into COVID way back in March of 2020, we immediately went into a support then deploy model. And that's now catching up with us because we have some infrastructure pieces that we basically held on and supported so they stayed where they were but need to be upgraded, such as the virtual server system that we put in place February of 2020 is now being utilized, and we need to transition completely over to that system. So that takes a lot of resources for us. But now with the management of the devices that we have, we're finally able to start getting onto those projects, which is nice. Not that anything continues to change in tech, so we're all flush with no changes. Any comments for me or any questions, any feedback, what's going on? I know a lot of the principals touch on stuff. We try to stay in touch with the directors, right down to the students to make sure everyone's supported. What I have for you.
Any questions for Jim? All right, thank you, Jim. That leads us to old business, in which there is none. We can go to new business. We have resignations and retirements.
I have 3 to announce. Melissa Jameson, Special Ed Tech 1, Heather Bullock, Special Ed Tech 3, Destiny Weber, Special Ed Tech 1 as well, have all submitted their resignations.
All right, I will look for a motion. We have a motion from Scott Fraser.
I move that we accept all the reservations as a block.
And I'll look for a second. We have one from Peter Clear. Second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of accepting the resignations? That is unanimous. And Heather is now with us.
Heather is now with us. Somebody noted that. She
Okay,
arrived at 6:30.
All right. Next, we have nominations.
Nominations, we do have some. Remember, I just asked you to add Connor Nealon, BMS Special Ed Tech 1. We have Christy Grant. I believe she's here tonight. She can wave. Christy's going to be our new adult ed secretary. Very appreciative of that. Melissa Sukforth will be doing our BMS chess team. Chandra Cody, BMS Civil Rights team. Jen Tarian, BMS Yearbook Committee. And Josh Jackson will be doing Bucksport High School Unified Basketball Coach.
All right. Do we have any questions on the nominees? If not, I'd look for a motion. We have a motion from Scott Fraser.
I move that we accept the nominations as a block.
Look for a second. We have a second from Peter Clear. Second. All those in favor of the motion? And that is unanimous. Thank you. We've got presentation of request to consider recognition of Glenn Webb.
Yes, we had a request from a community member who's here tonight, Dan Wentworth. A proud alum of Bucksport High School, 1900.
He's too kind.
And Danny's got a request of the board to consider Glenn Webb. Unfortunately, we lost Glenn. He passed away recently. Glenn was long time.
1 month ago, he passed
Yeah,
away.
longtime faculty member here in Bucksport at the middle school level for his entire time with us. And not only a science teacher, but coach and all around great person. So Dan, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Boothby. Good evening, and thank you for giving me this time and to make this request. A little background, I grew up through the Bucksport school system from 1966 to 1979. Those are the years that I went through the Bucksport school system, and during those years, I was blessed with having to meet a teacher and a coach in 7th and 8th grade who made a huge impression on me. He was just a great man who was very modest and very kind. So here I am tonight to ask the school board to consider honoring Glenn Webb, a longtime educator who passed away on September 15th of this year. Mr. Webb started teaching science at Bucksport High School in 1968. And even though he was a history major and was originally hired to teach social studies, he never taught a single day of social studies. For many years, and I never knew that until Scott told me. For many years, he also served as an assistant principal and athletic director, and to me, most important of all, he was a very good basketball coach, and I learned a lot from him. And even though he shined in many areas, it was as a coach that many of his former players fondly remember the life lessons that he instilled in them. Mr. Webb retired as a teacher after 31 years in Bucksport, with an additional 4 years in Stonington before coming to Bucksport. However, his career did not end there. After retiring, he stayed on as an ed tech for an additional 14 years. In total, Mr. Webb spent 45 years dedicating his life to students of Bucksport, RSU 25. So I'm asking tonight for the school board to consider naming the Bucksport Middle School Gymnasium in honor of Mr. Webb. This could be done in lettering over the entrance or a plaque or of some sort. I'm pretty sure he wouldn't want anything too elaborate. It sure would be appropriate to do this for him, to name this gymnasium after Glenn Webb. Thank you very much for your time.
This is a great recognition, Dan. Thank you for bringing this forward. And this speaks to the power of and the important role of educators. Somebody give 45 years, that's quite a life commitment there.
And that isn't even counting the 4 years he did in Stockton Springs.
Right.
49 years in education.
Yeah.
Stockton Springs, Stonington.
Yeah, I knew where you were.
My geography, so he was a geography major, and yeah, I wasn't.
Obviously, you didn't have him.
I didn't have him when I was too old.
So with requests like this, in the past, we've handled this by, worked with an ad hoc committee to go back and review the request, go back over it. I think it's important you take your time, put together the information that Mr. Wentworth presented, also do some more research, and really consider this. I think recognition of staff members is important, but it has to be done with due diligence, and it has to be done with consistency.
Great. So do we like to move forward with creating an ad hoc committee? Would that be-
It's up to the board. It's your decision.
That's why I'm putting forward to you. Would people be all right with that?
Yeah.
I would be more than willing to be on that committee.
I'd be willing to set on that if you need.
All right. Well, it looks like we've already got 2 members interested. What do we need? 3?
Well, 3 would be reasonable. You can't have a quorum.
Yeah.
How often will we,
As needed, Heather. I mean, usually it takes a couple meetings, maybe 3, and then come back with a recommendation.
I think I'm definitely interested
All
in
right.
discussing it.
That looks like 3 good board members right there for your ad hoc committee.
Okay.
Go ahead with that.
All right, and we will talk those and set up a next meeting and move forward, okay?
Thank you for volunteering for the ad hoc committee, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Danny.
Thank you, Dan.
And Danny, I'm sure we'll be reaching out to you as well for.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Have a good evening.
Next, we have consideration of request for Buck Memorial Library to become an educational partner with RSU 25.
Yep, I received a communique from the new librarian, Ms. Ladd, who has her master's in library science from Dartmouth. And she and her husband moved here from Dartmouth to take this position. This is where they've come to vacation, and this is where they wanted to be eventually. And this was just a great transition point for her. She invited Dr. William and I to come down to meet with her at the library. It was nice to walk in there and see the work that has undergone and taken on since she only been here shortly. But she very much wants to connect the library into the lives of the students and the community. She's got a lot of programs going on there. She would like to find ways to partner with the school and the school district so she can offer summer reading programs so that could be advertised through the schools, work with teachers in terms of, even at high school, if the kiddos need some support for research. Her background with an Ivy League school gives her a unique understanding of what it takes to do that type of research at that level. I think it's a great natural fit for the school district.
Prospect family members, Prospect is not, has not been able to get a free membership at that library. I believe it costs us $10 to get it or something like that. Has that changed out?
That has changed under her leadership. And Evelyn, correct me if I'm wrong, what I heard from this lad was that everybody gets a free library time. And
That's
she was
great.
talking about a number of people from Prospect who did.
I think my daughter did get one, and I thought it was just because she was affiliated with the school. And so I didn't know if we were just going to extend that out to Prospect.
And that's one of her goals, is she really wants to, the primary partnership had been with Bucksport, Orland, and Verona Island. But she had a number of people from Prospect who use the library.
Yeah, I thought it was strange when I first
Yeah.
moved here. I was like,
And-
what
and
do you mean?
basically-
My kids go to school here.
And Heather, really what it boiled down to is historically, those three communities would provide public funding to help support the library, where it's a private library.
I see.
And I don't know if the request had been made of Prospect or whatever, but that's gonna be addressed.
I see. I didn't know. I just thought it was strange. I never came across anything like it before.
It sounds like a reasonable question to me, so.
Yeah, yeah.
This is Abby speaking. I just wanted to say, like, since I learned about this in the curriculum committee, I just think what a wonderful opportunity. The more educational partners we can have, the better. And that means that our kiddos have access to another library, because they've all got their libraries in the school. But I think this is a great thing. I'm really excited about this.
And the partnership that we talked down there, part of our aspirations program is, it's not only the kiddos in schools, but it's the kiddos and families preschool. And they already have programs lined up for that and active activities, so it's a natural partnership.
We all good?
We're all good.
Okay. Next, we have first reading of policy.
Well, you
No,
gotta.
do we
gotta
take a
do
motion?
the-
Oh,
the motion.
well, that's why I was, we were all. That's why I was
My bad, I missed my cue.
Okay, so we do need a motion on it. Okay, and then I will look for a motion. You have a motion from Scott Fraser?
I move that we consider that we accept the request from the Buck Memorial Library to become an educational partner with RSU 25.
We have a second from Peter Clare.
Second.
All those in favor of the motion? And that is unanimous. Sorry, I misunderstood. I thought
No.
We're all.
We gotta practice more.
All done. All right. Next, we have first reading of policy.
You have 4 policies: JKAA, use of physical restraint and seclusion; JKAA-R, which is the procedures for physical restraint and seclusion; GBGB, which is a new policy for workplace bullying; and IHBAC, which is child find. 3 of these Policies are existing, and all that we presented are updates as required by legislative action in the last legislative session. GBGB workplace bullying is a new policy to us, but again, this is an outgrowth of legislative action. It is now a requirement in the state of Maine that all school districts must have this policy. Policies did not come from blank cloth. They were policies that were samples from MSMA or Drummond and Woodson law firm.
So I have a question on workplace bullying.
Yeah.
It is the first paragraph.
Yeah.
This is a policy which encompasses the community, of which we have no supervisory control over whatsoever.
Right.
So what are we supposed to do when cancel culture comes in and decides to start mocking somebody,
Well,
cyberbullying somebody?
we have a responsibility of,
Well, what are we supposed to do about that?
we have,
Go and tell Twitter, knock it off?
no, we can only control what we can control.
Well, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
I mean, this is asking policy that we can't ever have a possibility of enforcing.
But it is, okay, in the workplace. I mean, when it comes to those outside influences, like you talked about social media and such, we have very little control over that.
Yeah, well, I mean,
But-
we're saying that we're going to.
No, we're not. What we're saying is workplace. When you're in the workplace, we're gonna provide a safe work environment,
So let's say we were Langdon County, Virginia,
okay?
which right now, every Yahoo on the face of the earth is twittering these people to death
Mhm.
because a certain principal took actions that some people don't like.
Right.
What on earth is their school board doing about that?
Yeah.
They have no way of stopping those types of actions.
But that's outside of the schools.
Well, we're saying right here that we're going to control things that are outside of the school.
I think the community members, Tom, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
With our respect to like people on committees as part of the school board. So an example would be like in the curriculum committee, we have 10 community members that are a part.
I
And now they have to follow this when we're at this meeting.
And I can understand that, but the way that it is worded, we're encompassing the universe of humanity. And I think it needs to be reworded to reflect what you said, because what you said is reasonable. But what this is saying is even not reasonable. What this is saying is that we are now going to demand that we are going to somehow control everything. And that's just not possible. We need to make rules that are actually enforceable, not rules that have no capability of enforcement. And this is a rule that has no capability or possibility of enforcement. So I would be against this. We need to make this rule be able to be enforced. If we can't enforce a rule, I'm against that rule. There's no sense to make a rule if you can't enforce it. And this cannot be enforced as written. So I would want that paragraph changed before I would be in favor of this. The rest of it's just fine. But we need to limit who we are saying we're going to control. Because
Tom?
I can't go out and control what some nut job on the internet says.
I don't think my arm could get any higher. I feel like we control ourselves, right? As our school board and as our school unit, that we control our face out on those social medias. And that's where we're talking about is,
No, we're not.
you know, we
Read this
can,
paragraph. Read the paragraph. We're not saying that. We are saying all employees and students in the school unit, as well as parents, community members, and others involved with the schools, are prohibited from engaging in workplace bullying as defined in this policy.
right, it's
No,
not
what we
okay.
need to say is these are the people who we can control in this, and these are the people who we can't.
No, it's the action. It's not the people, it's the actions of the people that we're trying to control. You know,
Good
like,
luck controlling somebody in Hollywood. Good
right,
luck
but-
controlling somebody in New York City.
Right, but we have the ability to vote somebody off of the school board. We have the ability to have somebody resign.
Then make a policy that reflects that. This policy does not reflect that. This policy reflects everybody.
So you're
With-
asking for it to like be changed to be worded something like, all right, I think I understand what you're saying. Is that it's saying that as you're reading it, it says everybody that's involved with anything that goes on in our school at any approximation through perpetuity. And what I think the guts of it, what the intention of it is, anybody affiliated with activities and so as far as
Yes.
rewording, that would be an easy rewording.
Which
be
is
able to
all
say
that
anybody
I'm asking.
Yeah,
What I'm afraid of with this is that we are essentially making a policy that we cannot ever have a hope of enforcing. And therefore, when somebody does get voted from somebody outside that we have no possibility of stopping, then we have set ourselves up to be responsible for that lack of action. And I don't think we want to do that. I don't think we want to somehow tell somebody that we're going to protect them from everything. We have no capability of doing that. We can, however, say that we could protect somebody from people who we do have a control element over. And I'm fine with that. But I'm not fine with saying we're going to insure against everything, because we just don't have any chance of doing it. And that's the only thing that I would request that we change this.
kind of like a definition of, well, I mean, obviously all employees and students in the school unit, and define like as far as community members, specific about who is involved
Yes.
with our district.
Yeah. Define that better, so that we're not saying that it's everyone out there.
So Jim?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
I think the word committed, kind of gives us that sort of like where it's like a moral statement, where we're saying, we're gonna do everything possible to make the environment, free from bullying for everybody who's involved. We want everybody to participate. I mean, we can never, there's no policy ever that's gonna be like, everybody is gonna adhere to just this policy. I hear what you're saying, I really do.
I'm not saying anything about the actual meat of the thing. What I'm saying is the enforceability of it.
Right.
So.
And the overviewing statement.
That would be something different, right? Wouldn't we then have like a policy, then a sub-policy to the policy, which would then say
No.
3
no,
strikes or
No.
any of that stuff? I mean, what
Oh,
we would
absolutely
do.
not. No. What I'm saying is we limit it to only people that we have a control element over. So I'm saying if we've got a community member who is down on the bridge screaming and yelling about something, there's always somebody. That has nothing to do with us. Has nothing to do with us. We have no way of stopping that.
Right.
If they want to march up and down the street and scream about how they hate about something that's going on in the school, it has nothing to do with us. We're not anything under our control. Now, they might be targeting a specific RSU employee, and they might be bullying the living daylights out of them. But there's nothing that we can do about that. So it should not be part of this policy.
There is something we can do. We can either rally around us and say, we as a board, we work together and.
No, that's for the police to deal with.
That's
What Tom is
absolutely-
saying is that if they're on our property, if there's a family member of X child or whatever that is fighting with other child or fighting with that child's teacher, and they happen to be at the same soccer game, I mean, I think that would be considered workplace bullying. You know, that somebody's accosting them in a public, on our property, a
At a
public,
school
as
affiliated
a school affiliated
activity. or-
activity.
Yes.
If they are accosting them at that and bullying them at that, that is where we can intervene.
But not down on the bridge. I
That's
see the
right.
difference.
That's right. Yeah.
That's all that I'm asking,
Yeah.
is that we just word this tight enough so that it's only things that we have a control element in. That we're not trying to go out and control the world with just the RSU 25 school.
Right.
We're not Superman.
So,
And
if I could,
yes,
Mr. Guilty, could you reach out to the writers of this?
Yep.
For clarification around that,
Okay.
with the concern that Mr. Foster has, and I think the board would kind of hash around a little bit and get some clarification, and potential other wording that would be more efficient to where the conversation is, and then we'll bring it back to the policy committee for another look, maybe table this particular policy.
Yep.
I don't think there's any striking timeline that this has to be enacted by, that's pressing in any manner. And we'll bring it back to policy committee, we'll have a conversation around potential changes or clarification from them as to what their language, the intent of their language is. And we'll move on from there.
Yeah,
That would
so-
make sense.
Yeah, I'm still not entirely where you're at, like,
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
I really understand it,
no,
yeah,
I think that
yeah,
speaks well to the fact that that paragraph needs to be reworded.
okay.
When two people read the same paragraph and two people have completely different opinions as to what that means, it's a poorly written paragraph.
I agree, I think we should talk about it some more.
Simply put, I think that if there's room for assumption, and my assumption, I think I got to exactly what they were intending, but you're right, your assumption was not the same. And so when you're reading a policy or when you're putting a policy in place, there should be no room for assumption. And so that's, I think, that's exactly what his point is. Does that clear it up at all?
Oh, yeah, I mean, I feel like,
And-
I
and
feel
where-
like
and-
I don't,
and-
yeah,
And just so you know, where I come from, in what I do, you read things literally, and you don't add in words, and you don't take out words.
right, that's why,
And
yeah,
so,
yeah,
the way I'm reading it, it is saying it's encompassing everybody.
yeah, and the way I
Everybody
look
all
at
the
it,
time,
right, the
Everybody,
way I
all
look
the
at
time,
it is
every
in the
place.
workplace.
which is the all the
Which
time,
is-
all the
which is
places,
too
the
much.
tough.
Right,
Which is
I,
too-
yeah, and I see the workplace as
And
the
I don't want to
workplace.
keep this going any longer than possible, but I guess that's what I'm doing.
And that's
I'm
But hold
doing it.
on.
No, I'm not really, don't want to, I want to get home and see the game, but we're kind of stopped at community members, and I'm reading on, and it's prohibited from engaging in workplace bullying. And then to define workplace bullying below, so your example of out on the bridge and
Out on
everything,
the
that's
bridge.
not workplace bullying, but maybe I'm misreading that.
If they're targeting a teacher because of a teacher's specific performance, it could be determined to be workplace bullying.
I mean, is that member that's targeting that member like an employee? Because,
Yes.
okay, so it would be an employee of RSU 25 down at the bridge yelling about another employee
No,
of RSU 25.
I'm
Yeah, we
sorry, I
really need to talk about it
misheard
some
you.
more, yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
community members yelling about an employee.
yeah.
And an employee's
Yeah.
performance.
We can look for clarifying.
Yeah.
Clarifiers for that, and,
I just want to make sure that we're making enforceable policies.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. The other two, on the other hand, I have no problems with.
Okay.
I just,
Everybody all good with
I have a
that?
question with the restraint. I just want to know, I can remember years ago, I was MANT trained.
Yeah.
And I know they don't use MANT now, but
No.
what is the certified training that they're using now?
Safety team.
Okay.
It's called safety care. We do training, and I believe we have 28 staff members currently.
Is it similar to MANT? You must be familiar with MANT, so.
Yeah, I was trained in that.
Okay, I figured you were old.
Well, I started that. I was off the playground. We were in.
But is it similar, because it was very respectful with MANT?
Well, it's still respectful of students and children, but it's putting them in a safe environment, so no harm. to
Rather
themselves
than
or
more
harm
of
to
a
others,
restraint.
less of the actual
Okay.
holds and restraints.
Gotcha there. Good. Okay.
So do I understand, is it the intent of the board to table
GBGB
and consider moving forward with the other three?
Yes.
So I would look for.
Do we need a motion to table GBGB workplace bullying?
I think you can do an inclusive motion that would move the three policies forward and table GBGB for further work.
So moved.
There we go. We have a motion and a second from Mr.
Second.
Claire, and the motion was from Scott. All those in favor of the motion? And that is unanimous. Thank you. Next, we have second reading of policy. Oh, no, we already done that.
We already did that.
All right.
Heather was driving over here while we were doing that early, so she could participate in the motion.
I'm so sorry, I really did, I
That's
was like,
all right.
whatever's gonna work, I don't know when he's gonna be home.
All right. Next, we've got calendar and announcements. Curriculum committee is at December 16th, 6 o'clock, remote. Policy committee is November 9th, 6 o'clock, central office. Finance is November 16th, 5:30, right here. School board meeting, November 16th, 6 o'clock, right here. Facilities committee, November 10th, 4 o'clock, central office.
That should be 4:30.
Well,
my
4:30.
mistake. Yep.
4:30, yeah.
Okay. And Aspire Committee, October 27th, 6 o'clock, central office. Now we have time for adjournment. We have a motion from Scott.
I move that we adjourn.
We have a second from Peter.
Second.
All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you.
The ad hoc committee,